It's getting to be that time of year when we can pick fresh food out of our yards or gardens, and I am horrible at growing stuff, but there is one thing that I can pick fresh, and that is dandelions. And I love dandelions. I think they're pretty, and I love that they're actually useful and they just grow without having to do anything to them, and I don't understand why people want to get rid of them. But if you do happen to have a bunch of dandelions in your yard that you don't want there, you can just go ahead and pick them and then eat them. And today I'm going to be showing you how to make fried dandelion blossoms. We're going to start by taking off the stems and as much of the green part as we can without making the flower fall apart. So you can at least pinch the stem off right here, and then you can try pinching it off a little higher right above the base of the blossom, but that's a little risky because often your flower will just kind of fall apart if you don't leave enough of the green part, like this one is about to. It's just kind of spreading out there. I'm going to take that, and actually I forgot to get my water ready here. I have just a couple cups of filtered water, enough to cover the dandelion blossoms that I'm going to do, and I'm adding some sea salt, and letting them soak in the salted water helps get rid of any bugs that might be left on them that are not immediately noticeable. Yeah, that flower is definitely falling apart. So I'm just going to be pinching the stems off of the rest of these and not trying to get the base of the flower at all. And then I'm just going to drop all of these dandelion flowers in as I do them. I may have more dandelion flowers than I need here. About 45 to maybe 50 flowers is how many seem to fit in a cup, if you don't want to count them, but you want a general idea of how many you have. And of course you want to make sure that the dandelions you pick have not been sprayed with any pesticides or anything, and if you have pets that might have been spraying your dandelions, then you definitely want to rinse them well even before you soak them in salt water, I think. The green part of the dandelion is bitter, which is why you want to remove as much as possible. If you want to take a little more time to it, then you can kind of pull off those little leaves at the base there, and that removes some of the bitterness. But I'm not interested in spending hours making fried dandelions, so we'll just go with what we've got. And now that that's ready to soak, I'm going to just set that aside here. Make sure they're all nicely wetted down with salt water. And then I have 1 cup of soft white whole wheat flour. You can also just use plain white flour, or hard red wheat flour, I suppose, if you have it, but it's going to have a lot more of a whole wheat taste then. And then I have 3/4 of a cup of milk. If I were using white flour, I would use a full cup of milk, but soft white wheat does not tend to absorb nearly as much liquid. And then I'm adding an egg to that. And I'm just going to beat those together briefly, and then add it to the flour mixture. And this makes just a very nice basic fritter dough. Some people call them fried dandelions, and some people call them dandelion fritters, which you can use for either a savory fried dandelion or a sweet fried dandelion. In this case, I'm going to be putting powdered sugar on them for a sweet fried dandelion. But if you want it to be savory, you could serve them almost like onion rings with ketchup or maybe honey mustard or whatever your favorite dipping sauce is. And of course, if you want a variation on the sweet, you could also serve them with a little bit of maple syrup or honey or something like that drizzled over them. Alright, and what we have here is a nice thick batter, but definitely still very drippy, probably about the consistency of a thick pancake batter. I'm going to heat up some olive oil in my cast iron skillet. Not olive oil, coconut oil. You can use olive oil if you're making savory dandelions, but I don't really fry much in olive oil. Plus, I don't think it would really taste that great, but to each his own. And I'm adding just a thin layer of coconut oil, maybe 1/4 of an inch, because I definitely want enough oil in there to fry it well and not just saute it, but I don't necessarily want to deep fry them. And then I'm going to add just a tablespoon or so of butter for extra flavor in the coconut oil. Oh, and the coconut oil that I'm using, this is expeller pressed coconut oil, which is something that my husband can actually tolerate. He finds that regular extra virgin coconut oil will give him digestive problems, but he does not seem to have problems with this, and it doesn't have the coconut flavor. It's a much more neutral oil. And it is refined, technically, but there are no chemicals used in the refining process if it's expeller pressed. So that's something we've started using a lot of. And I'm going to heat this up just on a notch below medium because of the butter in there and because it's a more delicate frying process. I don't want it to be as hot as when I normally fry. I dropped a little batter in the oil to see when it was getting hot, and it's just starting to bubble briskly now, so I think it's hot enough. I'm going to pull out one of these dandelion flowers that's been soaking, drop it in my batter, and just kind of turn it over with the fork to make sure it gets well coated. And I think with the dandelion flowers I'm going to have to be really careful not to lose them in the batter because they're a little smaller than most things that I fry. Then I'm just going to drop it in the oil there, and then we will repeat this with several dandelion blossoms. You can also just mix all of your flowers into the batter and then spoon out spoonfuls and make them just like small pancakes, almost like rice pancakes or something else like that. And that way you don't have to do them individually. Or you can take off all the petals, which is even more time consuming than just removing the stems from flowers, and mix that into the batter and make small pancakes that way. And you'll want to turn these over when they start to brown on one side. For something this small, I'm using these smaller tongs. I think they're actually for serving salad, but they seem perfect for this purpose of actually maneuvering to turn over very small dandelion fritters. Since this is my first time, I'm going to turn some of them over when they're just cooked nicely and leave some to get a little crispier and more golden brown and see whether the soft ones or the crispy ones taste better. You maybe want to cook these 2 minutes on each side. It kind of depends on the heat of your oil. Mostly you want to just cook them until they reach the desired crispiness level. Obviously with dandelions it's not like chicken nuggets where you have to be concerned about raw meat safety or anything. And then as soon as you pull these out, you want to sprinkle them with a little bit of powdered sugar if you're doing sweet powdered sugar dandelion fritters. I really find that with powdered sugar and fried foods, the earlier you get it on, the better it sticks because it's still warm and has that nice grease sitting on the outside. I have to try one. I really like it, but I'm really not sure how to describe it. But it needs more powdered sugar. And here's what this yummy plate of dandelion fritters, or fried dandelions, looks like when it's all fried and coated with powdered sugar. And that is about 80 dandelions right there.